Working is presented by Maya Strategy Group, a leading market research and strategy consulting firm, helping clients in the pet care and animal health industries navigate strategic challenges for almost 2 decades. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pet Working. I'm Peter Kenseth, Vice President and Partner at Maya Strategy Group, and I am here today with Kara Stoney, Value Chain Coordinator and Sustainable Packaging Manager at Dow. Kara and I met at the Pet Sustainability Coalition's Impact Unleashed conference last year, and really since last June, we had been talking about getting this episode recorded, and here we are getting it in inside of 1 year, but really excited to bring this conversation to you because I think it's a subject that a lot of people, it might float around the periphery of their minds, but it's not something we think about every day, but it's really a chance to make more of an impact with respect to sustainable consumption and being a more conscious steward of the environment. And that gets to the issue of packaging. Obviously, we all want to feed our pets the best possible food that we can, the best possible treats that we can, but we need something to house that, the treats, the kibble, the raw, freeze-dried, all the innovations that go on in the pet food space, they don't make it to us without cans or, in many cases, flexible packaging, plastic packaging. And I was really interested to learn at PSC last year that the pet industry accounts for 3% of all flexible packaging in the world. It's about 300 million pounds of plastic packaging that's produced annually, and currently about 99% of it goes to landfills, which, as we all know, it's pretty intuitive. It's not good, but there's definitely some complexity to this equation. We obviously all want to make packaging more sustainable, more recyclable, and that's what Kara and the team at Dow are actively engaged in. So I'm really thrilled to welcome Kara to the program. And Kara, thanks for joining and welcome to Pet Working.
Yeah, thank you so much. I feel like you covered a lot of what we'll talk about in that first intro. So thank you. I'm really excited to finally get to chat about this.
Yeah, no, I think, it's like I said, I think it's one of those things that if people stop and think about it, it's pretty obvious and apparent. But, on a day-to-day basis, we're thinking more about how do we keep our pets fed? How do we keep our pets healthy? And there is that other half of the equation that, we have to think about the environmental impact that we are having as pet parents and that, we have as consumers on the environment, whether that's, our carbon footprint, whether that's putting plastics in landfills or, having plastics that aren't properly disposed of, and then they get into the oceans and create problems there. Certainly there's lots of different components to sustainability, and, it can be daunting and overwhelming when we look at it, from a holistic perspective around, cutting down carbon emissions, and, transportation costs and the impacts of sourcing. But I also think, like most problems, if we break it down into chunks and think about every little bit being something that contributes to the greater good, it moves the needle in a positive direction and leaves us feeling a little bit less helpless. And I know that's a big part of what you guys are working on, plastics. So talk to us a little bit about, your role, your focus, and some of the things that you're doing at Dow right now to kind of make this plastics problem a little bit more manageable for the pet industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dow is a material science company. And so what we're working on is ensuring that the product that we're putting out there is going to be able to be recyclable. And then it, as one is recyclable, but then also going to be able to be collected and actually recycled. So there's kind of two facets to that. I work alongside with different brand owners to understand what their goals are and what is needed to achieve that. And in order to do so, then we bring that back internally and say, okay, for X brand to move to a recyclable package, they'll need this, this, and this. I mean, when we think about pet food, I listened to one of your episodes with the son of the man who invented wellness, and he actually mentioned something that I thought I was like, wow, this is actually really interesting. People look at pet food, or they did a study about the way people choose pet food, but they actually mimicked it off how people choose baby food. And so it actually made me laugh a little bit of like, yeah, actually, that is very correct. So, really, when you're thinking about what you're choosing for your pet, you want to make sure, okay, yes, we want to choose the best option for your pet. But when you also think about it, you want to make sure that when you get that home and then when you're able to feed it to your pet, you don't want it to be in a bad quality. You don't want it to be moldy. You want to ensure that that package is going to be able to transport it through the distribution center, get it to your house, and get it, the pet food to your pet safely. I mean, I have two dogs and I love to look and make sure that the ingredients that we're feeding them is the best of the best, but I would be very upset if I finally, I bought the best ingredient packet or pet food and then I got it and it was moldy. So, I mean, I really think when you take a step back, packaging has become so much more than really just protecting the product. And originally intended, it was just to get the product from point A to point B, making sure it gets to the consumer safely, protecting that food. And I think today it's more so looking at protecting that carbon that's gone, the carbon intensity that's gone into creating that pet food. And that's extremely important. I believe the stat, correct me if I'm wrong, but if pets were a country, they'd be like number five in greenhouse gas emissions emitters. Is it five or?
I think that it's the if you took all the cats and dogs in the US and made them their own country, they would be the number five meat consuming country in the world.
Yes,
Um,
that's right.
yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, if you it's and I mean that's huge. I mean, I think they trail US people, and US people are number one, and then you have three other countries in between there, and then you have American pets as the
Mhm.
number five meat consuming country in the world. So yeah, it's definitely it's kind of shocking when you think of it for sure.
Right. Yeah. When you think about it that way, I mean, the product, you want to make sure that that package is there for what it's originally intended to do. It's there to protect that product that that company worked so hard to develop. Now, at Dow, what we're doing is ensuring that what that product originally, the package was originally intended to do. So, before right now, it's most likely you said, in a multi-layer material, it's not recyclable. It was engineered to have different layers, barrier layers, print web. There's so many different print and graphics on packaging nowadays, especially pet food. That's really going to grab your attention on the shelf. And so, in order to move that to a monomaterial, which would be one type of plastic, multi-layer, but one type of plastic. So, polyethylene is the one product that's able to be recycled at store drop off today. In order to move that multi-layer material to a monomaterial recyclable package, it takes a lot of engineering work on our side to do so. And what we've come up with is a large format package that would be able to be all polyethylene recyclable, and ensure that it's going to pass your drop testing, palatability testing, along with ensuring that that quality is coming from the manufacturer, going through the distribution center, and then getting to the consumer safely and making sure that that product is at that quality that you want to be at the consumer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think you touched on a lot there, and I think this is where, at the surface, it seems so simple of, why don't we transition packaging to more recyclable materials? Why don't we cut down on the amount of material that is in packaging? Um, there are so many other considerations that go into it. And I think, you mentioned this when we met at Impact Unleashed, and it's really stuck with me. You also, you have to think the packaging is one component, but if the packaging isn't durable enough to protect the pet food that is in it, then that pet food is going to waste, and you are effectively, all of the carbon that went into making that pet food is now you could almost treat that as its own emission, right? Because it's going to waste. The animal that the animals that went into that pet food are, their lives were wasted. The carbon that went into the manufacturing of that pet food, that's wasted. So there is this balance in finding, packaging that can be recycled, but we don't want to compromise the environmental, friendliness of packaging for, something that is going to break and be spilling, pet food all over the box. Uh, that hurts the brand. That consumers aren't going to be happy with it. So there's that. You mentioned printing on packaging. A lot of work goes into, making sure that something's going to appear a certain way on shelf, that it's going to pop on shelf. And so you have to take those considerations into account. And you also mentioned, the recyclability. You know, if for so many people, if they can't recycle it curbside, if they can't put it in their blue bin at their house, they're not going to take the extra step to recycle it. If that means a trip to the landfill for them, or to the waste center, they're not going to do it. If it means holding on to their bags of pet food and bringing them back to the pet store, or shipping them in through TerraCycle, that's it seems simple, but for a lot of people, that's more mind share than they're unless they're really committed environmentalists, then they're willing to so talk to us, when you're dealing with brands, when you're going out, do you find, is it more you're seeing brands, wanting to further commit to sustainable packaging and they're coming to you? Is it more of inbound, and then you kind of serve as the liaison, with the Dow engineering team, and like you were talking about, they're going to need this, this, and this, and can we make it happen? Or do you have product that you are going back out to brands with and trying to sell them on moving to a more sustainable package? How is it all, some of one, some of the other? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it kind of actually encompasses a lot of that. So when you're looking at a lot of the larger brands, and then the Pet Sustainability Coalition has their own pledge that some of the smaller brands are, or smaller and mid-tier brands are committing to. It's getting their package to 100% recyclability. And so they've put these pledges out there. And it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg. So you're going to design your package to be recyclable, but then will consumers go recycle it? So I don't know if you're like me. I have a giant bag filled with plastic grocery bags and all the flexible material that can be recycled. I just have to get in the more of the habit to take it back. Like, yes, eventually I will take it back, but I'm going to be shoving that bin down. So at the store. So I mean, I definitely think that what we're looking at is brands are making these commitments. How can we help them get there? But also then how can we help with that collection? So how can we bridge that gap between getting curbside collection? Because we know that a lot of MRFs today are not able to collect flexible films, traditional MRFs today. So what you're seeing is when people are, I mentioned, we talked about earlier, wish cycling. So people are putting things in the bin that are going to actually be gunking up the recycling system because the MRF or the material recycling, or excuse me, the material recovery facility is not able to handle that film. So what it's actually doing is kind of creating a huge deterrent for other items to actually get recycled. And then all of that film is just going to gunk up that machinery. That's going to create downtime. Workers are going to have to go and clean that up. It's creating operational inefficiencies that we really want to make sure that when we're creating recyclable packaging, we want to make sure that consumers are educated on where to put it too. So not that they're wish cycling away. I mean, when you think about it, I buy a big 30-pound dog food bag probably once a month. And that's a lot of plastic packaging. If you think about if that's one large one all polyethylene monomaterial can be recycled, that's a lot. And so if we're able to actually, in the meantime, before packaging is going to be able to be curbside and material recovering facilities are going to be up to speed and able to pull those out, the film out, and consumers can just put it in the bin, we need to make sure that we're helping consumers be educated in order to bring it back to your stores. Even if it is sitting there for a little while, make sure that you are saving it and bringing it back, because that stuff will eventually go back into packaging. Today, it's some applications going into durable applications such as decking. So, I mean, what we really want to do is Yes, we want to move brand owners to recyclable packaging, but then there's also been a pledge of recycled content that's out there. So, in order to meet those recycled content goals, we need to make sure that the packaging that they're using is recyclable so it can be collected and then eventually go back into that same format and package. So, again, there's so many different variables that are going on today, but really feeling like we're working toward the recyclability of the product. We're working toward the collection. We have different partnerships that we're working on collection with, and hopefully bridging that gap. Store drop off is a great option today. It's just getting the consumer to do that one extra step, and educating and letting them know, hey, you actually can go do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're exactly right. For me, I have my recyclable bottles and I have my recyclable bags, and thankfully, my grocery store, the bottles and the bag recycling are in the same area. So I just take both when I go. And then my pet food bags, I bring back to the pet store. But, you know, it definitely takes, you're not always, I'm rarely done with my one bag before I'm going to buy the next. And, because I don't want to ever be in a situation where I'm running out. But I do feel, I feel like there are outliers in people that are just more likely to do this. So I think it's great that you are working to help facilitate with the collection, to the extent that we can, educating people about you can either mail this in or you can bring it to your pet store, and they have you know boxes and collection areas that you can drop it off there. um, what percentage, you mentioned the difference between getting people to recycle and having that recycled plastic go into applications like decking and things like that. And then also, in addition to moving brands to um, recyclable packaging, but also using post-consumer content. How much of where are we at with getting people to post-consumer based um, plastic packaging versus, I know you guys were doing some stuff with corn and bioethylene and things like that. What's the breakdown there?
Yeah, so we have a goal is to transform the waste goal. And so it's really looking at 3 million metric tons of our annual pounds are going to be going to be either recyclable or renewable. And so that's going to be that what you mentioned, the bio-based options that we have today. And then we have our recycled, both mechanical and advanced. So for our bio-based options, that's really going to be on the carbon side. So we're utilizing renewable materials, but renewable waste. So that's going to be today, we're using used cooking oil. And so that will be an option for people to actually help with that decarbonization of their package. In 2026, we have a partnership with New Energy Blue, and they're going to be using all of the excess when people are picking corn and then all of those husks, all of that waste. So that'll be able to be turned into an oil that we're able to utilize and share, people can then use bio-based credits, and then they will be able to lower their carbon footprint with that package. I think that's a good option for customers that are looking to focus on decarbonization and renewable aspects as well. We don't want to compete with food. I think that's one of the main drivers too from Dow's side, is that we want to make sure that what we're utilizing for our bio-based options is going to be waste, things that don't necessarily have a home today. So when you think of used cooking oil, all the leftover stuff when you're picking corn, that stuff can be utilized now as a bio-based option today for packaging. For our recycled packaging, I would say one of the main kind of issues that we're seeing, not issues, but challenges for pet food packaging, is pets are a lot more sensitive to smells than humans are. So when we look at mechanical recycled product, that doesn't necessarily mean that right away it has a home in pet food packaging. So we've been talking to different people that mentioned that, getting somebody on board for a pet for to get them on pet food. And really, it's from 0 to 6 months of that dog's span of whenever that person either adopts the dog or uh, buys the dog, whatever it may be. Within that span, that's really when they're going to be getting brand loyal. So they'll try a dog food. If their dog likes it and everything's fine, they'll stay with that. People are not really switching their pet food. So when you look at potentially incorporating a mechanical recycled product that could maybe potentially change the odor, we wouldn't notice it, but a dog may. And if that dog is kind of looking away and saying, oh, actually, no, I don't want this dog food, you're going to be running to the store saying, okay, what's going on? We're going to change brands, which, that's not what a brand wants. So what we're really talking through more so for, and what we see for the pet food space today, now the mechanical space that'll change, we'll see evolutions in that. But what we're seeing is more so advanced recycling content. So that's going to be where I've heard people say in the industry. So basically, they describe it as a Lego set. So when you're thinking of a full Lego set, that would be like the full plastic package. You're going to put it through a process where you're taking all of those little Legos out, and then you have all of them spread out. So basically, you're taking that package, you're putting it through a process, and you're breaking it down to its original monomers. That can then be put back into our process as a recycled material that would be able to perform the same as virgin. Plastic today doesn't have any issues with any odor or a smell that maybe a dog may be super sensitive to. So that's really where we see for brand owners meeting their recycled goals and recycled content or virgin reduction goals. That's where we see those two aspects meeting those needs there.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting and a great point that you make. We focus so much on palatability, and I was talking with folks at Hills at Global Pet, and they were talking about the science of taste and how one of their big initiatives this year is introducing more flavors and formulations to Science Diet, because it doesn't matter how nutritious the food is, or the functional benefit that they're getting from it if they're not going to eat it. And similarly, if you are putting stuff in a sustainable package, and that means that, but it's carrying an odor that is off-putting to your dog or cat, and they're not eating the food, then what have you really gained? You've probably lost a customer. You're giving that customer reasons and excuses to trial. And as you pointed out, like, that is where the market is right now. I think one of the really interesting things I heard at Global Pet is that, from the height of the pandemic, we're down about 3 million pet owning households. So there are fewer pets in the country now. And so from a brand perspective, it's really turned into you grow by taking share from other brands. But particularly in nutrition, people are really sensitive to changing their pet's diet and changing their food. And so, I can very, very readily understand why brands would be hesitant to experiment with anything that might compromise the palatability of their formulations. How often, when you're working with brands, how do you address those concerns? How often is that a concern? And when you're working with them, getting back to kind of the value chain process, do you find that, they're considering options other than Dow, or are they really kind of working with you as like a strategic partner and kind of giving you their specs? Talk to us a little bit about that.
So yeah, I prefer, working on partnerships rather than just kind of one-off projects. We're at the very kind of base of the value chain. So we provide the plastic resin that would go to a converter that would make the film, and then make either that converter would make the package format or send it to another converter, make it into the package, and then the brand who would either use a co-packer to fill the food in or do it themselves. So, I mean, what we're looking at is we work with a lot of different converters. We have a lot of customers. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're helping everybody in the value chain. So when we're designing this design for recyclability is what we call it. So we're design for recyclability package. We want to make sure that it's going to be able to run on our customers' lines, that they're going to be able to then allow our brand owners, partners to utilize that package format as they would do today. So we have a facility in Freeport, Texas. It's called Pack Studios. We have a lot of converting equipment today that we can actually utilize for we can put our resins in and run as our customers would. So they can come and run different blends of resins in order to see, hey, how does this run on the line? Because, line time today, especially in operations, shutting down a line, doing a trial, that takes away from production. And that's definitely not something that we want to do. We want to be able to have them have our, what we like to call packaging playground. So they can make the film, they can then turn it into a package, and we can do some different testing, such as transportation testing, and a lot of other types that you want to make sure that when you're transitioning to a recyclable package, you're able to meet all of those needs that people originally would want or brand owners would want.
So you're essentially serving as like pilot plant, so to speak.
Yeah, a little bit. I would say it's a innovation plant where we're working with those converters or brand owners as together and making sure that hey, when the brand owner expects one thing from the converter is going to expect one thing from us. We want to make sure that it's a collaborative process, because at the end of the day, if we can make something, we want to make sure that our customers are going to be able to run it and the brand owners are going to be able to utilize it as well. So really having that partnership is important. Again, also when looking at recyclable material as well and incorporating that, we need to make sure that we have that partnership with the brand owner. So the brand owner wants it, but we need to make sure that we have that partnership with our customer, their converter, to make sure that's running and that it's meeting or exceeding their needs.
Sure. Are you seeing now, are people more willing to kind of experiment with recyclable and change packaging, given that a lot of the capacity and supply constraints that we were seeing during and after the pandemic with the spike in pet ownership are subsiding a bit? I mean, I know, for so many brands, COVID hit, everybody adopted a pet. We had 23 million new pets added uh, in the United States in a single year. Um, and, at the same time, you're dealing with reverberations throughout the supply chain with, shortages of raw materials, the Texas freeze, the Suez Canal, uh, ships being, stuck in the ports. It reverberated throughout the industry. I mean, so many brands had to put products on allocation, pause SKUs, things like that. And I think, we saw at Global Pet this year, a lot of those manufacturing and supply chain constraints are finally resolved. We're seeing a lot more new innovation. But like you mentioned, line time is still super valuable. And you see companies investing in new manufacturing facilities, um, do you find that now that there is maybe a little bit more bandwidth? Obviously, we're still seeing pressure to, unclog the line, so to speak. As we're moving towards that, are you seeing more brands open to introducing a variable like changing packaging?
I can't 100% attribute it to that. I mean, I will say during COVID, there was absolutely no changes to a lot of brands because they were like, we just have to run what we have today. We don't know were kind of like, what's going on? We don't know what to expect. So they just had to run what they had today. Now, I think the unfortunate part is we lost those years to really work on that development. A lot of brands have signed up for that 2025 goal to hit 100% recyclable, reusable, or compostable packaging, similar to, again, what the Pet Sustainability Coalition made as well. And so I think that's really where we're seeing the push. These brand owners have made these commitments a while ago. They need to meet them and they're looking to meet them. So that's really where we're seeing the ramp up. They want their packaging to be recyclable. And then along with that, they've made these 15% virgin reduction goals or 20 to 25% recycled content incorporation goals. So again, in order to do that, we need recyclable packaging to then be able to create that kind of circular economy that we want to see eventually. So I think the 2025 goals are really the ones that are pushing brand owners to move a little bit faster than we've seen maybe in the past, because we do have that extra time, unlike we did in COVID.
And what's your optimism that they're going to? I mean, we're in 2024. Is it? Are we looking at, with those 2025 goals? Is that end 2025, start 2025? And what's your prognosis as to how likely it is that these brands will be able to meet those goals?
From what my understanding is at the end of 2025. So they have a, bit of time to meet their a bit of time, but when you think about it in the packaging world, not a ton of time, especially when all of the testing for safety and quality when moving to new packaging. So, I mean, I would just say that I think what we're seeing is when brands are looking to move to a recyclable package, they need to make sure that when we're moving, again, we're creating that same quality. We're allowing the customers to know, hey, we have these sustainability initiatives going on. And we've made commitments to meeting them. And I feel optimistic that we do have some spearhead brands that are going to be able to meet those goals. Again, we do maybe have some that will be trailing along. Some brands will be slower movers than others. We've worked with some that are kind of wait maybe till after, and then there's other ones that are going to be able to meet those 2025 goals. I'm pretty optimistic of once those come. You don't want to be from a consumer lens, somebody that says something and doesn't do it, especially in the sustainability space today. I think that's going to be, it's really impactful, especially when we're talking through about millennials and Gen Z. Being a sustainable company is very impactful now. So for companies to meet those goals, I feel optimistic that we'll see a lot of them meeting them, but there will still be a lot of work to do in order for them to meet them even by 2030.
Makes sense. In terms of packaging innovation, on the sustainability and recyclability side, what are you most excited to see? What are some of the big things coming out that, you know, gets you out of bed in the morning and gives you hope that we're moving in the right direction?
I as I mentioned before, we work with a lot of brand owners that are moving to recyclable packaging, and we have different sciences in order to meet those goals. And I'm really excited that we have something that's going to be able to help those brand owners move to meet their recyclability goals. I'm also really excited about our decarbonization effort. So, film packaging is already one of the lower carbon footprints out of packaging in general. But what I think is really exciting is that we have a lot of decarbonization efforts. We have the first carbon neutral cracker going in up in Alberta in Fort Saskatchewan. So out of there, we'll be able to offer a lower carbon footprint polyethylene plastic that's coming out. And so then, as we talked about the carbon intensity that goes into a product, the food itself, and then the package is a small portion. But even if we're able to reduce that carbon intensity, or in the carbon that goes into that package, I think that's going to be really exciting to see that moving forward and allowing companies to really showcase, hey, we have a lower carbon footprint product. I think it's really easy to see packaging as a problem because of the amount. You can just see it. It's out there today. It's you kind of, when you're putting things in your recycle bin, you can see how there is a lot of product there, but then there's a lot of carbon in the air as well. It's harder to see, so it's harder to really capture an audience and understanding exactly what that means. So I think it's really exciting to see on those decarbonization efforts. I mean, along with I'm really excited about the different collection initiatives that we have going on as well. As I mentioned, it's very easy to kind of tell that story about collection and where that product is going back into. So I'm really excited to kind of see where that goes and our initiatives there as well.
Yeah, no, I mean it gets back to what we were talking about earlier, and every little bit helps, right? It maybe the packaging isn't the majority of the carbon footprint. I think statistics I've read, correct me if I'm wrong, or it's somewhere around 20% of the overall carbon emissions from a given product. But if you can take that down, great. It's less carbon. It's a step in the right direction, combating climate change. I would sort of liken it to, you know, you could choose to drive an electric car or not. But if and in the grand scheme of things, is your one, internal combustion vehicle going to offset the balance overall? No. But at the same time, why not drive electric and, take those emissions out of the equation entirely. Um, it and similarly with the collection efforts, it's take tackling problems like this pieces at a time, I think are how we have to do it. Because if we try to look at changing the entire paradigm in a day, in a year, it's not going to happen, and it feels overwhelming, and it turns everybody off from it. But if we can show that incremental progress and those incremental gains, we're going to move in the right direction. And I'm confident and cautiously optimistic that we will get there. From a consumer standpoint, Kara, can you talk to us a little bit about, in terms of when you're looking at packaging, what are some things that you can look for, and to identify whether a brand that you're buying is using sustainable, recyclable packaging, and in the event that listeners find that maybe one of the brands that they are fond of has not embarked on a sustainable packaging initiative, what are some of the things that they can do to, from a consumer advocacy standpoint, push them in the right direction, so to speak?
Yeah, so I think when you're looking, I mean, I'm a packaging nerd, so going through the grocery store is always fun, looking at what what new packaging is out there. Is it recyclable? What type is it? So that's always fun. But so what the most widely used would be the how to recycle label. So it'll tell you kind of exactly what is in the product and what to do with it. And that's really what's important from a consumer lens in that education. So it'll say, for example, for pet food, if it's a recyclable pet food option, it'll say store drop off, how to recycle recyclable at store drop off if clean and dry, and then you can take it to your store, whichever grocery store where you do your store drop off. It's even important, I think, to see when companies have label. I think it's very important to see when companies have the how to recycle label that even says this product is not recyclable. Because like I mentioned before, that wish cycling, that's just going to gunk up the recycling system and actually just not help us move forward. So showcasing that, hey, this product actually isn't recyclable, or you have to take off this paper label, and that's going to go into this recycle. You have to separate these, or make sure you have the lid on. All of those are really important when we're talking about consumer education and exactly what to do with the package. And from a consumer standpoint, I think it's important to just look and see what the sustainability initiatives are of the companies that you're buying from. Maybe they've already signed up for these packaging pledges. I just saw a great example of a company that kind of explained why they were still in the package that they're in, and it was all about food safety, getting it to the consumer safely and with the quality that they want. So I think that that's important as well. From You're welcome to write to the company, but I would say really what's important is just ensuring that they're aligned with sustainability goals in general, not only on packaging, but also on the planet, the climate, and ensuring that the pet food or the food that they're getting that's putting into the pet food is as sustainable as possible as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a great point. And it kind of strikes me because I feel, when we talk about wish cycling, there are different, collection and recycling protocols in different states, municipalities, districts. For me, I always grew up kind of looking for the triangle arrow, and so many things that might be recyclable somewhere else are not recyclable here in Vermont. Like styrofoam is a key example for me. Like, you'll get the styrofoam packaging on the bottom of your hamburger or whatever, and it says recyclable, but if I read my recycling company's guidelines, they don't want that. They'd rather have that thrown in the trash. And so I do think, like, how to recycle, and initiatives like that are really important because you know I think for so many people, you feel bad throwing something in the trash. I think about, like, the little plastic caps on, like, baby food pouches. That's gonna too small, gonna gunk up the machine, but you feel weird throwing plastic in the trash. Sometimes, there is this compromise of, okay, I wish this were recyclable, but I need to kind of take it for what it is. And I think again, it's steps on the journey. And like you said, there may be food safety reasons and you know, other considerations for why that package decision was made the way it was made. And there is the carbon, preservation component of the value of the raw materials that are contained within the package.
Yeah, I think it's just an exciting time because you do really see more consumers pushing brand owners to be more sustainable and more recyclable. And so if we're able to help them become recyclable, I think that that's really exciting. And we're just seeing more of a kind of movement of brands really kind of taking that action now, and not just kind of pledging, but really more so taking that action and meeting consumer demands, especially like I mentioned, millennials and Gen Z are just, especially Gen Z, we're going to see them pushing for more sustainable, and that's how they're going to buy their products. So if you're wanting to compete and wanting to be a brand in the future, sustainability is the way to go.
Yeah, no, I mean we saw at Global Pet, there was the Pet Sustainability Corridor. PSC had a whole sponsored wing. It's not everywhere, but I think brands realize they at least have to be conscious and attuned to being more sustainable. And I always kind of harken back to it's great to better the lives of people. It's great to better the lives of pets, but at the heart of it, if we're not taking care of the planet while we're doing that, it doesn't matter how good we make our lives. They're not going to end up being all that good for that long because we're not going to have a place to live. So, I think and again, it does come back to, taking it in bite-sized chunks, everybody contributing when and how they can, and just being conscious of it. So I'm really happy we had a chance to chat about this today. I think, it raises a lot of new and hopefully thought-provoking insights for brands and for pet owners. There's 300 million pounds of plastic waste out there, and as of last summer, 99% of it was going to landfills. So, as we can cut that down, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. And like you said, I think it's a pretty exciting time to see where the industry is going to go.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It was great chatting with you about all of this, and looking forward to seeing hopefully that 99 number go down, and more are going to be able to be recyclable.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be hopefully, from 99%, there's a lot of room to work with. So hopefully we can see some rapid gains pretty quickly, and some inspiring presentations at future conferences. Are you going to be hitting Super Zoo or any of the other pet industry functions this year or next?
Yes, if it's not me, it's going to be one of my colleagues. So yeah, just making sure that we're kind of also making sure that we understand what the industry is looking for, so that we're able to meet those needs as well. So definitely we'll either see you in person or send a colleague to chat with you as well.
Sounds good. Well, I look forward to it. And yeah, I'm getting the word out now, but I turned 40 on the last day of Super Zoo this year, so it'll be a good conference. We'll have some good times.
Well, then maybe
so
I'll just have to
come. Yeah, absolutely. Big party. Well, Kara, thank you so much. As always, it's a pleasure chatting with you, and really appreciate you taking the time to share more about Dow and the great work you guys are doing, driving sustainability forward on the packaging side of things. And we'll look forward to chatting again soon. For Kara Stoney, this is Peter Kenseth with Petworking, and really appreciate everyone taking the time to join us today. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye, everyone. Petworking is presented by